You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone! Welcome to episode 268 of Teach Better Talk podcast. Jeff Gargis is whispering in my ear to try and mess up this introduction. And you know, friends, I'm a professional. My name is Ray Hewart. I'm here with Geoffrey Gargis. And oh boy, 268. That's a doozy. So Jeff, for real, I have a topic we need to discuss before this epic episode with Danny.
Okay. What topic is that?
Well, so I don't know if you heard. I know this is complete news to you.
Sure.
But the summer is coming.
Yeah. Okay. Is that
one
light or two lights?
Wait, what?
The British are coming. The British are coming. One lights, two lights. No. Summer coming.
Bad joke. Bad joke. The summer is coming, which means school is ending. Teachers are going to have a few months where they are going to get to hopefully refresh, relax, spend time with family, spend some time in the sun safely. All of you, put on your sunscreen. All of it. I know everybody has already run out to buy their favorite bikini because, you know, that's what everyone does over the summer. Right, Jeff? Do you have your bikini picked out?
I have my bikini picked out.
Are you like a red polka dot kind of guy?
No, I'm usually like I don't wear a bikini first off. Board shorts, but I'm usually either like just a black or like I like a really bright like white and blue or like random like flowers and stuff. I like to stand out sometimes on the beach.
I just like that every episode starts with a little bit of randomness, and how many people do you think tuned in to episode 268 to hear about what bikini you wore over the summer? I mean, that's news, right?
Yeah, my guess is less than 3 people. Fewer than 3.
Moving on.
What are we actually talking about here?
My point is, we also are going to do a whole slew of webinars this summer. So while people are sitting by the beach and relaxing at the pool and just chilling on their couch, we are going to be hanging out with educators and making sure that if they decide, and this is the caveat, if you decide to work, we are going to make sure it is as effective and efficient as humanly possible, because we don't want to waste your time. And I was really excited to see these webinars come out because there are a lot of them and they all serve a different purpose. And I cannot wait for people to go register. Yeah,
so we've got a bunch. So we have a couple that are the grid method, where you're literally going to you're going to actually learn how to build a grid and run the grid method while going through a grid, which is like the coolest part about it. And then we have 2 series that are on how do you take all that knowledge and create your intro grid, right? And then we've got the weighing in to get the buy-in with Caitlin and Dave, just because basically everyone's like, give us more Caitlin and Dave, and we're like, okay. And then there's possibly some other ones that aren't necessarily launched yet, because why not? So the first one, though, the very first one that's starting is you.
Well, and I think it's like, I'm thrilled that I get to kick it off because I love being able to host webinars where you get to register, you get a Zoom link, we give you oodles of resources, and then in addition to us giving you information, we actually talk shop, give you work time, and then we get to kind of conference with you like I'd love to do with my own students in my own classroom. Like, I get to give you feedback on your grids, which is something that I know everybody on the team seems to do weekly. We're constantly just trying to give educators authentic feedback. And so we have 2 grid method webinars that are going on, one in June that ends at the beginning of July, and one that starts in July and ends at the beginning of August. So what I like is, like, depending on what type of like time you like to work, like, do you want to take a break at the beginning and then do some work July, August, or do you want to get right into it, have your grid all finalized and ready, and then take your summer? It
essentially, when are you hitting the beach in your bikini, and then come to the webinar on the opposite. But those are
it's only twice a week, just to confirm.
Yeah, but they're 4 weeks, so you're getting 8 sessions. Like, that's
Yes.
sessions, not just with you or if it, depending on or with Chad, but also with the group that's in there. So you're getting feedback from Ray or Chad or whoever you're with, but also with your colleagues that are in this learning journey with you, which is the really fun part. It's we get little families, right?
Yeah,
not
it's a
cohort,
little cohort.
Family. We're gonna call them families. Little families.
I love families. I love family time, and it's like an hour and a half, twice a week, 2 sessions. I really think that it's long enough that you're going to get a lot done. Because at the end of the 4 weeks, truly, Chad and I have a goal for each and every one of you to have a grid that's done, student ready, right? So we do want to accomplish that, but we also want to make sure that in the hour and a half, you're thinking, you're asking questions, you get what you need, and then at the end, you can put it away and go enjoy your summer. So I'm excited for those 2 things to start. And then, like you said, in between, there's Caitlin and Dave are doing the Way Into Earn Buy-In, which I really, really love that concept. They're going to be talking about not only grading, which is a Dave and Caitlin topic, but more along the lines of when you have a topic that you're trying to bring to your school, bring to your colleagues, how do you do it? How do you present information that way? And how do you model those practices? And so they're having such great conversation. And then, to be honest, the intro grid ones, the fact that we're doing that twice over the summer is really to help those educators that want to set up a personalized learning classroom, a mastery focused classroom. But how do you bring it to your students? How do you bring it to your parents? How do you explain it? How do you get them acclimated with those new procedures, with that new mindset before you get into content? And, it'll be cool to get that all finalized for educators too. So August is going to be a breeze, Jeff.
So there's a bunch of them going on, so we could rattle off all the individual pages to go to, but where's the best place to go to see all of these different websites or webinars going on so that I can find the one that's right for me?
Yeah, so the webinars are all over teachbetter.com, but they are specifically, if you want to click around, specifically teachbetter.com on the homepage. If you go, if you scroll down, 2 scrolls, you're going to see all the webinars there that you just click on. You can see the registration details. Or if you want to explore a little bit more, we actually have a professional development page under the What We Do tab. And that not only lists the live PD that we do with districts, but also lists our speakers network, our open webinars, kind of all that stuff, everything in the academies in there. So that's where we house all the professional development that you could take advantage of with the Teach Better team outside of, the other shenanigans we like to enjoy.
I love it. Awesome. It's exciting. It's going to be a fun summer. So let's get into this episode. This was a great episode. If you don't know Danny Bauer, he is the founder of Better Leaders, Better Schools. And the way he describes it is that he helps out-of-the-box school leaders make change happen in education. And he's got a bunch of stuff going on. So he's got a book that's already out. He's got another one coming out. He's got multiple podcasts. He does masterminds. He does coaching. He's just an inspiring dude that wants to help leaders make actual changes and both themselves and their staff and their communities, and then in the education in a larger worldwide, I'd say worldwide, what he is at this point. So just really cool dude, really fun dude. Super excited for people to hear him and connect to him and stuff. So Ray, if you're good, I'm good, and we can just get into it. Episode 268 with Danny Bauer.
Hey, what's up, Teach Better family? It's Jeff, and I wanted to make sure that you were aware of all of the webinar series that we have going on this summer. Our summer webinars kick off with our first series, which is a 4-week, 8-session series with Ray, all about the grid method. Also this summer, we have a grid method webinar series with Chad Ostrowski, the creator of the grid method. We also have 2 webinar series with Ray, all about building that introductory grid to get things rolling in your classroom. We've got Dave Schmittou and Caitlin Giordano talking about how you can get important conversations going in your school building or district with our Weighing In to Get Buy-In series happening in July. And then wrapping things up in August, we have our standards-based grading webinar with Dave Schmittou. To get all the details and register, head over to teachbetter.com today.
All right, we are here. We are chatting with Danny Bauer. And Danny, awesome to have you on the podcast. I've heard so many awesome things about you. I know a lot of people that are connected with you, some people that are in your mastermind. We got connected randomly one night on in a clubhouse room, just hanging out a little bit. I'm like, hey, you need to come on the podcast, and here you are. So super excited to have you here. Excited to kind of dive into all the things that you got going on and learn more about you. But before we get too far into all that, how are you doing right now, man?
Doing good. I'm wearing new glasses, and they're supposed to filter out blue light, so my eyes aren't as fatigued as usual. So I'm feeling great, Jeff. Thank you.
It's good to hear.
So fancy over there. I like it. Very, very cool.
It is. It's fancy.
You know, Danny, it's funny because I've been hearing your name for a long time, and I'm so excited that we actually get to chat and meet and kind of dive into all these questions. But if our listeners haven't been connected to you, can you kind of go through how you describe yourself when somebody asks you what you do?
Yeah, I call my title Chief Ruckus Maker over at Better Leaders, Better Schools, and ruckus making is about being a out of the box leader, making change happen in education. So that's kind of the title. And when I think about what I do, I just help leaders be more of themselves and be more effective. And the best way to probably describe that is maybe share a story. And I've worked with Sarah, who is now an assistant principal. And so when we first started working together one-on-one, at the time she was a dean of students and had school administrative aspirations, and just helped her move from dean to AP. And one day she'll be a principal. She's ready now. So Sarah, if you're listening, put in an application somewhere. But, it's fun. We'll sit and create space and safety so she can truly talk about where she wants to grow and where she needs help. And some things that we've worked on is just sometimes she puts on crabby pants, she calls them. So we work on mindset and have her walk away from those sessions a lot more optimistic and positive and focused on the right stuff. And work on voice as well, being confident that you have something valuable to share and confident in the value that you create for others. And a lot of school leaders that I support as well, they have the tension of serving so many masters, so to speak, because central office wants certain parts of them. Then there's parents, staff, and students, and they're not always playing nicely together in the same playground. And so it's just trying to figure out how to navigate those sort of the political map, I guess, and also how you handle expectations when, just people do stuff and it messes with you, right? It doesn't resonate and land the right way. And so how do you pick yourself up and still show up and be your best?
And so when you're working, Danny, I know you have masterminds, you do one-on-one coaching too. Is that what I'm hearing as well?
Yeah, so I guess I should have told maybe a story about the mastermind versus one-on-one
because No, it's okay. I just want to make sure we're talking. It's both, right? You do the mastermind, but you also do one-on-one.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. In the one-on-one is definitely a lot less than the mastermind. But yeah, the mastermind's a community, that I created a while ago, and it's not something I invented. It's just the fact that I experienced it for myself. In 2015, I joined a mastermind called Iron Sharpens Iron. And I just had such a professional and personal transformation. That's when I had that light bulb moment, right? And I looked at our industry and I said, who's connecting isolated leaders in that sort of way? And I didn't see it out there. I might have missed it, but I started inviting folks, and the early adopters, there were 7. And while I was still leading a school, I think the community grew to about, let's say 20, which was plenty to serve while still being in a local school. And then my wife and I decided to move overseas. She wanted to do some research and just experience academia in a different setting outside the U.S. I said, let's go for it, because if I'm a failure, I can always go back to a school or lead in an international school. And if it works, then what, And it grew from 20 to 40 to 50. Now there's over 70 leaders from around the world. And the mastermind community is essentially just a space where hungry, innovative school leaders connect on a weekly basis and share tips and tricks of what's working and help each other navigate the biggest challenges that they face regularly.
I love that. And that's the Better Leaders, Better Schools mastermind.
That's right.
And you have, so on that note, going into several other things you have. So you have your Better Leaders, Better Schools roadmap, which is your book. Mm-hmm. Then you have 2 podcasts. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm not looking, I'm not cheating. The one is the Better Leaders, Better Schools podcast, and I cannot remember what's the second one.
School Leadership Series.
School Leadership Series, yes. So, and then I know you also have another book coming down the road too. So I'm going to have you do a whole bunch right here. So can you kind of give us the overview of what's the book about, what are the 2 podcasts about, and how do they kind of all work together to service the people that you're serving daily?
Yes. So the Better Leaders, Better Schools podcast is for Ruckus Makers. And that one is a weekly conversation like we're doing here. And so that's been a lot of fun. It's been around since 2015. There's actually a third podcast, which is an archive podcast of season 1 of that show, because Apple only keeps the first 300 episodes, and that way people can have access to that content still. The school leadership series is also for Ruckus Makers, and it's in a different format. So instead of weekly in about 30 minutes, it's daily and always between 3 to 5 minutes. The neat thing with that show too, it's also on Amazon Alexa enabled devices. So if you have one of those and you say, "Hey Alexa, play my morning brief," you can hear the show as you get ready for work. The other neat thing is that it's not just me hosting it. So the quick story there is that I asked my mastermind community to challenge tradition. A lot of times tradition is built for a student, a kid that no longer exists in the current school setting. And the systems and structures that were built to support that kid, it's just kind of irrelevant. And sometimes it might even actually be a bit oppressive, biased, or prejudiced. And so that's easy for a school leader to identify. Who has access to the best classes, best teachers, dress code, discipline? You could look at that stuff and change tradition in a good way. But then I started thinking about my company and how do I question what I built, and it's just a few years old. And so the epiphany there was, if I care about equity, if I care about social justice and a multicultural lens, where does that show up in my work? Where does that show up in the guests I invite on the podcast? Where does that show up in the books we read in the mastermind? And then I thought, I don't have to host my own show. And so I built a diverse team of A+, just amazing educators, and they helped me host that podcast. Second book is about the mastermind. And that one is actually going to be called Mastermind, Unlocking the Potential Within Every School Leader. And that one I'm doing with Corwin, which is super cool. They approached me and said, "Hey, we want to tell your story about how you support school leaders." And so we started telling that story. The first draft, just in rate, it sucked. It had good ideas, but was really poorly organized. And that was the feedback I received. So I thought about, what makes a really great book? And I started thinking about how most, or at least many great books I've come across, they have some kind of model that they teach. And I took a whole bunch of walks outside, walked away from my computer and the writing process. And I said, why does the mastermind work? And so sort of like the leadership and educator tip I want to share with your listeners is sometimes you're so close to the work, you don't even realize what makes it special. Derek Sivers has a quote that says, "What's ordinary to you is extraordinary to me." So I had to really think and zoom out and think about why the community works. And the framework is the ABCs of powerful professional development, which stands for authenticity, belonging, and challenge. And that's why our community works. And so basically the book tells that story.
I love that. So that's sometime this fall. Is that when it's coming?
Yeah, September 28th, as long as we stay on production schedule.
All right. So if you listen right now when this comes out, you're going to have to wait a little bit. But because Danny's awesome, a little bit later in the episode, we're going to give away a copy of his current book, which is The Better Leaders, Better Schools Roadmap. So that's going to go so you can at least get on the right road and right path there, and then you'll be ready for the book when it comes out in September. So that's awesome. We're going to do that a little bit later. Danny, I want to get into one of my favorite questions that we ask all of our guests here on the podcast is to share a story that of a time you've had a failure. And I'm excited to hear this one because, of all the things you just rattled off and all the things that you do and all this amazing stuff and the books and everything like that, it'd be really easy to say, man, Danny's had a whole lot of success. He's just cruising. This guy's got it figured out, which is why I think these types of stories are super powerful. And of course, this is me assuming that you've had a failure. So I hope I'm not wrong on that. I'd like you to share a story with us about the time you've had a failure. Kind of take us there with you. What happened? How did you overcome that? And then what did you pull away from that experience?
Yeah, well, I have failures every day, honestly. And, personally, I may show up and be wound up too tight or impatient or angry. And I consider that a failure. And I've learned through, I think, journaling and mindfulness practice, right, how to course correct. And sometimes when I'm at my best, I can sense that an explosion or just impatience, is going to take over. And I could feel it in my body. I don't know about you, but I clench my fists. I might clench my jaw as well. Yeah. So anyways, that's something. And I'm constantly thinking about like how to correct that, because that's not who I want to be. But a professional failure recently, speaking of the book, just reaching out, asking for endorsements from educators I really respect and admire. And I made a video about this, and I think people responded quite nicely, because I like to be authentic and show people behind the scenes like what's going on. And I was hurt because somebody said they'd pass on the endorsement, and there's almost 500 episodes I put out there. So one of my guests, right, somebody that people would know this person's name if I said it, and the person was like, "Yeah, I'll pass," and it just messed with me a bit, because I felt like I promoted this person's work, and we were establishing rapport in a relationship, and so I could have thought like, well, is this a reflection of me? Is it a reflection of my work? And this kind of stuff. And the lesson learned from it is that it's perfectly okay, because a whole bunch of said they would endorse the book, right? And the person who is doing the forward is an absolutely bigger name, so to speak, right? And so what I learned in that moment is just, where do I want to put my focus? Do I want to focus on this failure, on this snub, or it's not even necessarily a snub? This person might not have had enough time, right? So do I put my focus there, or do I focus on what's going well on my life? And that's the lesson learned.
No, I just think that it's so important for us to try and embrace those lessons, right? I mean, that's what this whole thing is all about. And it's not a snub. It's not, somebody not supporting you, but sometimes, things happen and we're able to power through them. I think that's a really important lesson for us all to consider, especially as the end of the year is coming, right? Is really seeing the positives and understanding that even when it doesn't work out the way we hope for it to, doesn't mean there can't be celebrations to be had, right?
Right. And what I like what you pointed out there too, Ray, is the fact that, I don't know if you can relate, Jeff can relate, or the listener, I take things personally, right? So like you said, like I said, it probably wasn't a snub. Maybe it was just a capacity thing and timing. Who knows? And,
Sure.
And honestly, who cares? Because plenty of people said yes, right? So where do you put your focus? And that's probably a good reflection question to ask, especially when the stakes or emotions are running a bit high. Am I taking this personally? Should I be taking this personally? Is this helpful right now? And that probably would get you out of that negative loop.
So important. I find you so fascinating to listen to. I think you're a great storyteller, and I love that you've dedicated your work to helping people. I think that's such a wonderful space that you operate in. When it comes to education, obviously the work you're doing, you continue to do, what do you feel like is really keeping you excited right now about what's going on in education and everything that you're involved in?
Excited is easy, because the book will be coming out, and that's a huge project and a big lift. I'm playing in the YouTube space, so that's growing slowly and steadily. And if people do resonate with stories I tell, it's a whole lot of fun. And what's funny is, I pay a video production team to put some content out there that looks a little more polished, I guess. But I find I enjoy really making the 2-minute riffs where I'm just sharing an insight from the day. I really like putting that out there the most. But the most exciting part, it's kind of a combination of it all. And I read in The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek this idea of a just cause. And it's this like huge, massive vision. It's so aspirational. You're probably never going to achieve it. And it's so big, it's much bigger than you, so you need help. And so my just cause is to grow, connect, and mentor every single school leader who wants to level up. So probably not ever going to fully realize that dream. And I certainly can't do it myself. But being on a show like this and just building relationships and collaborating instead of competing with a lot of people in the same space, that's exciting to me because, the motto at Better Leaders, Better Schools is everybody wins when a leader gets better. Everybody wins when Jeff and Ray get better. And that's just what I believe. And so the more people, that we can get sort of dancing to that tune is a pretty cool thing.
Oh, I love that concept of collaborating versus competing. That is truly my favorite part of education. All of us need to continue to hold true to that. It's so, so important. Oh, it's a good line. So when it comes to advice, I mean, geez, you've shared already a ton of advice. I know that you literally share feedback and advice for a living as you coach and support all these educators. What is one piece, and I know it's hard to pick one piece of advice that you want to leave our listeners for your episode?
Just understand how your presence impacts the classroom or school or district environment, and your words really matter. So be mindful about what's coming out of your mouth. Listen more than you speak. But yes, you absolutely control the weather. So when you're an educator, you're not going into it to be a meteorologist, but you certainly are. And how you show up is going to be for better or worse. Earlier we were talking about failures and what you learned, and I talked about personal failures and getting too angry and that kind of thing. So the mindfulness part helps me notice, and I also scan my body too, which is a mindfulness thing. But I have a personal philosophy that I'd like to share, which is to be an intentional catalyst. It's just 4 words. It means a lot. I won't unpack it here. That's a whole podcast in itself. But what happens with this personal philosophy is I realize the power that I have, right, to influence spaces for better or for worse. And at my best, when things are getting out of control, I hear that personal philosophy ringing around in my head, probably when I don't want to hear it. And that's when I need to hear it most. And it helps me course correct. So, and it's something that I recite every morning as well. And before coming on a show like this, just to remind myself of who I want to be in this moment.
Wow, 2 powerful pieces there, that you control the weather and to be an intentional catalyst. I love that. And I love that you recite it every day, Danny, that you go back to that when you're feeling certain things, and that's that anchor. I think that's such an important piece of that. So really appreciate you sharing that. The book, The Better Leaders, Better Schools Roadmap, we're going to give away a free copy now. Danny, we're going to make this pretty easy. If you're listening right now, you want to copy this book, go on to Twitter and tweet out. Make sure you tag Danny. Danny, what's the Twitter handle?
It's one that makes no sense, so that's why I must pick it. It's and everybody's like, what is it? At Alien Earbud. My name, Daniel Bauer. I was an English teacher. I love word games, anagrams. You take all the letters, right, in a word, and you mix them around and spell new stuff. So if you take the letters in Daniel Bauer, you can get Alien Earbud.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that's where you got that. I love it so much more now.
There's a story behind everything, Jeff.
I love that. That is awesome. So at Alien Airbud, make sure you hit tag at Teach Better Team, hashtag Teach Better. Pretty simple. Just answer the question. What is a leader to you? So what does it mean? What is a leader? And tweet that out. We're going to pick someone and we'll get a copy of Danny's book out to you there. Danny, we're going to have some fun. We're going to do the next 6 questions. I'm going to throw them at you. Your goal is to answer each one in 15 seconds or less. You ready to go?
As a storyteller, I'm feeling anxious, but I'm ready to go.
What is one EdTech tool you cannot live without?
TeachFx.
Give us a book you're reading right now.
I'm giving you 3 because I earned some extra seconds on that first one. Crazy Good by Steve Chandler. The Person You Mean to Be by Dolly, Chugh. And Crossing the Chasm by Geoffrey Moore.
Who do we need to follow on Twitter or Instagram today?
Instagram, I love Jim Carrey, so Jim Carrey here. And Twitter at Shane A. Parrish.
Give us a good YouTube channel, website, or podcast for educators to check out.
Shout out to Kyle Wagner, and he has a platform called transformschool.com, so you can find Kyle that way in YouTube.
Give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
So I do a gratitude journal, and I learned how to 10x that through Dan Sullivan from the Strategic Coach teaching. Calls it the positive focus. So list your gratitude or your win, but then talk about why it matters to you. It takes it that much deeper. What would further progress look like? And what would be the next smallest step?
Oh, I like that. Give us the best piece of advice you've ever received.
So the best piece of advice, I'm going to say it's when you die, you take absolutely nothing with you except your reputation. And that comes from Kevin Kelly's 68 Bits of Unsolicited Advice, which he wrote when he turned 68.
I love that. Wow. All right. You did it right there. I don't know what you were worried about.
I want to unpack each one of them, so maybe it's a second show.
Well, maybe the second show we can just go back through and we'll unpack each one of these. I am not opposed to that idea at all. I like it. What do you think, Ray?
You know, Danny, I'm always looking for a new co-host. So if you're open, maybe you should do podcast number 3. I can get rid of Jeff, and you can really unpack that in a few episodes here at Teach Better Talk.
Why not? I mean, I'm all about podcast takeovers. Actually, if you ever wanted to do some school leadership series content, you and Jeff are invited to do a podcast takeover. But yeah, Ray, let me knock out Jeff for an episode or 2, and we could record something.
No, she's looking for not an episode.
Oh, new podcast.
She's looking to take. No, she's just looking to take me completely out.
Oh, wow.
It's true. I'm just trying to get rid of him.
Complete takeover.
Complete takeover. I can't commit to that, but I could do a couple shows.
Oh,
Danny, we just talked about someone saying no after you asked them a big question that you put a lot of weight in. Come on, Danny, just say yes. This is peer pressure.
I said yes to a few episodes. I know here's the thing is I know my schedule and capacity, and I don't want to let you down. So if I'm going to say yes, it's going to be a hell yes. I'm going to be all in. Sorry about that.
That's a good answer, Ray. You can't fight that.
All right.
Can't fight it.
All right. Well, listeners, you heard it here
He's too
first.
sensible for us.
Yeah, I'll convince him at some point. Don't you worry. But, say bye-bye to Jeff here in episode 268. For everyone else, I do want to make sure they can connect with you. Danny, do you mind sharing kind of your website, Twitter, Instagram? I know you shared a little bit as we went in the book, but just going again on how they can stay connected to your content.
Yeah, pretty much at Alien Earbud on all the social channels. Daniel at betterleadersbetterschools.com is my email. Feel free to call or text me 312-788-7595. And the website's betterleadersbetterschools.com.
And you can find all the links and all the resources we mentioned in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as all those links for connecting with Danny, keeping the conversation going. So make sure you head over to teachbetter.com for all of that. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you can give us a rating and a review, we'd really appreciate that as well. Let's keep taking this one step further. Think of just 3 of your colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and connect with these amazing educators, and just share this podcast with them. Danny, this was awesome, man. Really just super pumped that we were able to get you on the show. Love everything that you're doing. And just really appreciate you taking some time out of your day and hanging out with us, man. Thank you.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you for the invitation, Jeff and Ray. It's been an honor.
And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.